Hey, what's up, everybody? Thank you so much for tuning in today. Vox&Hops episode number 30. Can't believe that we're there already. It seems like not too long ago I just launched this in late October of last year. I am extremely happy to be back home after being on tour for the past 4.5, almost 5 weeks in North America alongside Aborted, Benighted, Hideous Divinity. In the hell over North America, the ultimate blast beat parties. I just want to give a huge shout out to all the bands, all the crew members. It is an honor. It is a pleasure. And I had a great fucking time on tour with all you boys. So huge shout out to the boys in Aborted. This is my second tour in a row with you guys, and it is always a pleasure. And every night I was going up on stage and performing a Hoarder of Macabre up on stage every night with them, and that was an honor. It was truly a pleasure to hang out in a different way on stage, you know, turning and like looking at Sven, and it's no longer Sven, it's Sven on stage. It's an interesting thing that gets to happen to frontmen. We transform into different people when we're on stage, and it was fun to witness the band in that aspect. Huge shout out to the boys in Benighted. You were only there for half of the tour, but I deeply love you boys. You are the happiest, most positive people to tour with. The singer Julien, Vox&Hops alumni, huge shout out to you. You are a breath of fresh air. You are a huge teddy bear, and I can't wait to see you in Lyon coming up on the next tour in Europe, and I'm looking forward to my hug. The boys in Hideous Divinity, I met you for the first time, minus Stefano, who's doing double duty on this tour because he was playing bass for Aborted. I just want to give you guys a huge shout out. You guys were super cool, super professional, and a real pleasure to be around. So all in all, hell over North America, great fucking time. I want to give a huge shout out to my boys, the Cryptopsy boys, and especially to my crew. Jim Gregory came out, his first tour, extensive tour of the United States with a band, selling our merchandise. I really think that you did a fucking great job, and I really appreciate you, dude. Your positivity, your work attitude, your work ethics. I really appreciated you, and I'm looking forward to working with you again. We got 2 sound men on this tour. We had the wonderful Alexander Kendrick, who I interviewed, and that will be coming up in the next few weeks. I love you, dude. We met on Devastation on the Nation when I didn't know who you were, and I really like you, dude, and we're going to hang out some more. We have lots of fun together. And up here in Canada, huge shout out to Tom for coming out, filling in on those Canadian dates. We worked together in early December when we did a little run up here in Canada, and you're a fun dude too, and we even got to party your birthday the night of Toronto, and that was absolutely an incredible night, and we wouldn't have gotten anywhere if it wasn't for our driver. So a huge shout out to Donnie Hill. Thank you for getting us all around the States and a bit of Canada extremely safely, and you even got us through that drive from Montreal to Rouyn-Noranda, which was absolutely insane. So huge shout out to you, Donnie, and I'm hoping to cross paths with you once again in the near future. I have to give a huge thanks and appreciation to the people that brought out some beer for us on this trip. Throughout the past week, we had Etienne, Dore, Christian, Mongrain, Theriault, who came out in Rouyn-Noranda and gave us a bunch of delicious local Quebec beers. They were much appreciated, boys, and they were absolutely delicious. I have to give a shout out to a drummer that I've known for a long time. Back in the day, 3 Mile Scream played with Crimson Shadows, and the drummer's name is Corey Hofing, and you came out and you brought me some great stuff. There was this zombie Imperial Stout that you brought out that we drank late night in Toronto, and it was delicious, dude. So thank you so much. I'm stoked to see you again. And a longtime friend of the band, Kat Ashcroft, you came out and you brought us some delicious Berliner Weiss from the Collective Arts Brewing. There was a ginger lime one and a cucumber, something that tasted like bubblegum. It was delicious. Thank you so much, Kat, and I'm looking forward to hanging with you again. And also, I had an awesome collaboration, which I did in Toronto, with Chris from J. Hoff's Films. He's a YouTuber. He's got a great YouTube channel. You guys should check it out, the J. Hoff Films. He makes metal memes, many metal comedy parodies, and him and his crew came out and we did a collaboration, Vox&Hops and J. Hoff's Films, which is out right now. You can see it on YouTube. I have posted it on the Vox&Hops page. You can check that out. Him and his crew came out and we filmed this little collaboration interview with him, and he brought us a whole stack of delicious, crazy Ontarian beers, which fueled Tom's party that night, and I shared a whole bunch of the rest of the beers that were with the rest of the tour package because we just had too much to bring home. So it was awesome, and we really appreciate you all. Thank you so much. But hats off to one person in particular who blew my socks off in Toronto. Jamie Morris from Henderson Brewing had hit me up before the tour and had invited me to come do an interview on premises at Henderson Brewing. Sadly, I didn't have the time, but he brought out a whole bunch of beer from Henderson, and they've been delicious. I've been working my way through them here at home and tasting them. But the one thing that Jamie did, which just blew my mind, was that Jamie Morris brewed the first Vox&Hops beer. He made a beer just for the podcast. He said he made it on his balcony. It was a small batch. Just he brought out one bottle, like a large growler of this thing, and it was called the Lotz of Hopz. And it was a double dry hopped double IPA, clocked in about 8%. It was absolutely delicious. It was a hazy cryo hopped double IPA. It was delicious. It was hazy. It was fruity. It was everything that I like a beer to be, and I'm completely humbled and in awe that you did this, Jamie. So thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. I am humbled and speechless. I was completely blown away that you did this, the first Vox&Hops beer from the discussion of me creating this podcast, almost about a year ago right now, to the point that someone is coming and presenting me with a beer for my podcast. Blew my mind. So a huge thank you to you. Today on the podcast, I have a fellow podcaster, a fellow vocal screamer. I sat down with Monte Barnard when I was in Portland. We had a great chat. Here it is, Vox&Hops number 30.
I warn you, what you are about to hear is very disturbing indeed.
What's up, everybody? Today I am in Portland, Oregon, at the Belmont Tap House.
Yes, station, Belmont Station.
Belmont Station with Monte Barnard of Casting Metal Podcast and Casting Metal News, the Metal News website.
Cheers. Cheers, everyone.
He is also a death metal vocalist.
I dabble.
I met you in 2017.
Yes.
On the Devastation on the Nation tour, when you were the front man of the Kennedy Veil.
Correct.
So what have you been doing? You've been busy?
I've been busy. I did a couple runs with the Kennedy Veil, had some fun with those boys. Their drummer, Gabe Sieber, and I go way back. Our roots in Sacramento.
That's right. Vox&Hops alumni, Gabe Sieber.
Yes. That was a great episode. After that, I filled in for the vocal position in Fallujah. Did a European tour with them, did a full run of the States with them as they kind of transitioned away from Alex Hoffman into their now new vocalist, Antonio Palermo. Been doing some other side projects, kind of this and that, and lending my voice to certain things just for fun, shits and giggles, as it were. And now I have the 9-to-5 tech startup, a fiance, 2 small dogs, and I'm having a beer with you.
Awesome. 9-to-5 tech startup. What is that?
I work for an app called Expensify.
Okay.
So in a nutshell, what it does is it makes it so that people who do expense reports don't have to do them because expense reports suck. Everyone hates doing them. I'm actually in the process, and I'd love to talk to you more about this a little later off mic, but I'm in the process of kind of rolling out a solution for bands, for accounting, for management, tour management, and agents on ways they can basically use this app to correlate and make much easier their pain in the ass tour accounting at the end of the day.
It is a pain in the ass.
Yeah. So
I'm glad I'm not the one that does it.
I saw right. So I saw kind of what we do as an application. What I do for them is a lot of onboarding, training, setup for bigger companies, and I kind of want to take that skill and parlay it into helping tour managers and maybe kind of build more of a presence for our application and our platform in the music industry as a whole, not just in metal. Just, again, make life easier for everyone.
That's awesome. We're drinking a beer. It's a Hazy RyePA.
Yes, it is the Modern Times Solar Oath. I only remember because it sounds like such a good band name.
Let's see what the sucker's got.
Yes.
Cheers.
Cheers.
It smells delicious, tropical, fruity, creamy almost. The color is a beautiful opaque haze on the paler side, and it's got delicious, creamy, tropical flavor. Very, very good beer.
Yeah. The IPA is there. The IBUs are definitely to a degree, but they feel curbed by that rye, by the haze is less piercing, is less penetrating.
It's not very bitter, which is the style of IPA that I'm really in love with right now. Let's talk. Are you a craft beer enthusiast?
I started out my beer journey, as it were, as a craft beer enthusiast. I started out on Old Rasputin was my first love of a beer. Oddly enough, at the ripe old age of 25. I was straight edge, actually, until then.
Really?
Playing a lot of Converge rip-off bands in my early 20s.
Really?
And didn't drink, didn't smoke, didn't do nothing. I was a good boy. And as story as old as time, I had a bad breakup. And beer, why not? Why not?
Straight to the heavy darkness.
Straight to the heavy darkness. And honestly, I gravitated towards it simply because I was such a coffee snob. I love craft coffee so much, artisan coffees and whatnot. So I kind of figured that might be a good transitionary kind of beer, a good kind of first beer. I fell in love with it, fell in love with stouts, porters. But then, as we were discussing earlier, I kind of regressed back into the light, beer-flavored water of Coors Light, of Rainier, our local best in brew, so to speak. But now I'm kind of coming full circle. I'm getting back into and gravitating back to your IPAs, even red ales, which I never found good or interesting. I'm getting back into those, trying to expand the palate a little bit.
There's a very strong beer scene here in Portland. Could you name off some of your favorite breweries, local breweries?
Local breweries. If local, I guess we can kind of build out the circumference out to Bend, Oregon. There's a lot of great breweries in Bend. Deschutes, Modern Times, what we're drinking here. Ninkasi is another great beer. Christmas time, I always get their Slayer beer.
Oh, yeah.
Spelled like a sleigh, but they write it in Slayer with Santa throwing the goat on the... I can't not. That's a great malty dark ale for any holiday celebration. But those off the top of my head, but there's always something new to discover. It's almost option paralysis, as we were looking in the bottle room earlier.
It's insane,
Yeah, so much good stuff, and the vast majority of it is from right down the street, so...
That's awesome. Cheers to Portland.
Cheers to Portland.
Yeah, leading the way.
I talked into the beer instead of the
microphone. You are not in a touring band right now.
Correct.
What happened there?
Always a bridesmaid, never a bride, Matt. That's what I like to say. A couple of just, things happen. I filled in for Alter Beast for a while. That's a whole nother story on the kind of different trials and tribulations that Andrew and his crew have gone through. Wish them all the best. Filled in for Theriault Murder, which was a huge opportunity and a lot of fun. Not to get too into it, but it turned out that it came to light, whereas I was under the impression that I was the new vocalist of the band, and I was told that. It kind of came to light that CJ was going through a lot of issues, and he decided that he wanted to rejoin the band, and his status and celebrity and kind of weight within the band and influence, it was stupid of them to say no. So he came back. But I've toured with them since that, mended fences. They're good guys. Shared the stage, did a couple songs with them. So good times there. But again, just, ups and downs as it is. It's a hard business to maintain a life in, as I'm sure you're well aware, with a wife and a child. We have one daughter?
I have one daughter and one son.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I have a new son, yeah.
So
It sucks being away. Absolutely.
It's not easy. Yeah. So I definitely, still looking to do stuff. I have started another project. We're getting a new practice space next week. Got a couple notable names in it. I don't want to jinx it by telling the world, but it does have a couple notable names from, other 30-ish-year-old dudes in my same kind of predicament and, use case. But yeah, just ups and downs. It happens. Hard on relationships, hard on financials. But
absolutely,
looking to get back. It's kind of a part-time touring regimen. This group we're looking to start, it's all, tenured guys who've done this before, who know what they're doing. So we want to kind of use our combined acumen to build something that we can maybe do, a couple weeks here and there. Luckily, my company is very liberal with their PTO policy, so I can leave for a week, leave for 2 weeks, and it's not too big of a deal.
That's a very complicated thing to have. To have a job that you just walk right back in when you come home.
It's a balancing act, and I commend people who can find that balance, and they can strike that ability to go back and forth. I think the gig economy is fantastic for a lot of people who are looking to do that now. With driving, delivering, walking dogs, all of which I've done, all of which I did, and you can definitely do it. You can definitely diversify, and I think it lends itself to to do this, to be what you're doing, to be in a full-time band and have a family, have other jobs, and kind of be able to kind of cultivate that balance back and forth, the cream of the crop rises, man, where it's like you got to be able to be on your hustle. You got to start a podcast. You got to do 6 other things, wear multiple hats, and really be able to kind of parlay one thing into 5 others. And I think it's really cool to see that the people that are doing it are working and hustling so hard, and it'll weed out the fakers. It'll weed out the people that are just there to be famous, This
is the fun part of the podcast.
Exactly.
Actually doing the interview and hanging out.
Exactly.
There's a lot of work that goes on behind it.
Exactly.
Which is not so fun. If you could dream gig, fill in. You filled in for a lot of bands, as you're mentioning.
Yeah.
What would be your dream gig?
Dream gig to fill in for.
A singer can't make it for a good reason. You had a baby or something positive, and they call you to step in.
Can we come back to that? I gotta rack my brain. But
Perfect.
I'll think of something good. I'll think of something good, man, for sure. Black Dahlia Murder. Duh.
Yeah, there you go.
Duh. Yeah. Was lucky enough to do a couple tours with them, and just the fact that Trevor knows my name is just kind of like, and I asked him to do a song on the last Kennedyville record that I did, and he said yes. And when I got those stems back of hearing him sing my words and my patterns, I sent him a dry track, a talk track or whatever, and he sent it back. It was just like the goosebumps didn't go away for like 30 minutes. It was crazy.
He's awesome. He's awesome. Man.
One of the best.
Absolutely. Yeah. Let's talk about screaming. Were you always a screamer? Did you play an instrument before that?
Great question. I guess it's pertinent to the subject of the podcast. Yes, actually, from day one. I played guitar, picked up a guitar, and enjoyed that. Was playing kind of, punk songs and, AFI, Nirvana, stuff like that. And 12-year-old, 13-year-old Monty was doing that. And we signed up for the talent show at my middle school, so 7th or 8th grade or so. And we wanted to play Smells Like Teen Spirit. And I could play it on guitar. Not a difficult song for, 12-year-old fingers. But then I tried singing it, and I sounded terrible. I do not have a melodic, clean voice. It's not something that comes naturally to me. I don't have an inclination for it whatsoever. We also were covering, I believe it was like an AFI song. To this day, I can't really remember what the song was. I think it was AFI. And I was screaming it. And, they were like, that sounds pretty cool. And literally from there on, I started doing it more and more, kind of emulating Under Oath and Dead Poetic and that like early screamo kind of West Coast, East Coast stuff from the States. And then I started a screamo band in high school, and I was
You just abandoned the guitar?
No, I was the key songwriter on guitar. Okay. But then I did all the majority of the harsh vocals was myself. Our front man did primarily cleans, but he had a little bit of a gruff to him. And then after that, I just being the ham that I am, I just wanted the spotlight and loved Converge, loved the more metalcore Kill Switch Engage sound. Wanted to kind of ratchet up the heaviness a little bit, throw a couple breakdowns in there, and so I wrangled the cats, got everyone together, started a band. I at the beginning, I wrote a lot of the guitar parts. I wrote a lot of the riffs for it, and then would, hand the guitar off and then stick to the mic. And then just kept going, and here I am today.
That's awesome. Who would be your number one scream influencer?
At the beginning, I would say it was Jacob Bannon. At the beginning, for sure. Hearing Jane Doe, I hated it at first. It was just way too much for my, Zao, Lamb of God, Kill Switch Engage, 18-year-old brain. It was way too much. But then upon the 3rd, 4th, 5th listen to kind of really delve into it, I really liked what he was doing, and I was blatantly ripping him off at the beginning. I didn't know how to do lows at all. It was all a high register, all fry, all pushing way too hard. Going forward from that, Eddie Hermida from when he was in All Shall Perish, now Suicide Silence, I always was really impressed with his range and how he could do certain things, and I tried to emulate that. And then Trevor from Dahlia, definitely. Hearing Funeral Thirst for the first time while I was working at Baskin-Robbins Ice Cream at being 15 and just being like, what is that? That was, as I'm sure many listeners can attribute to, Black Dahlia was definitely the gateway band for myself. From moving on to metalcore, As They Lay Dying, 18 Visions, Atreyu, to like Black Dahlia Murder, and then he's wearing an Origin shirt. He's wearing a Hate shirt. Kind of moving on he's wearing a Cryptopsy shirt. Moving on to more of, okay, I can test the waters, I can push the envelope a little bit more, and then kind of opening that realm to myself.
You mentioned high fry screams. So that seems you know what your technique is.
To a degree.
Could you explain to people what your approach to vocals is, how you apply a scream, if you had to teach someone?
Wow. My fiance asked me multiple times to try to teach her, and I try, and she just thinks it's silly or can't do it, or I'm gonna teach her one of these days. To a degree, I always kind of lend it to the idea of thinking of it as if you watch zombie movies, you play video games with monsters, and then it's effectively a voice you're doing, getting an effect, and then pushing it with your diaphragm, pushing it with the same muscle that you use to take a shit, the same muscle that if you make an S noise, like you hiss and then you want to make that louder, that muscle you use. The idea is to make that kind of voice, get that tonality, and then push that in a certain way. So, or that, and just doing an impression of Macho Man Randy Savage, and then gritting it up a little bit. Like it's funny, right?
That's a very, very good description.
It's funny because there's so many peripherals and so many things in pop culture and just in media in general that do silly voices and intense monster sounds or whatever. And everyone's like, oh, that's scary. Oh, that's funny. Oh, that's this. And it's the same applicable skill that if you can do an impression of this or you can do that, that's really all it is. And I'm sure you've heard this a billion times as a vocalist. It always sounds like, oh, that sounds like it's hurting your voice, or that sounds so intense. And it's always like, yes, it sounds like it is.
But it's very controlled.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah.
Very controlled and calculated.
Not to say I'm perfect at it. Not to say I haven't blown my voice out multiple times on tours. So
I think when we blow out our voice, it's mostly our voice is tired from what we put it through on stage, and then after the show,
true,
we're talking over loud music and stuff. That's always what gets me.
Exactly. Yeah, it's the talking to fans. It's the answering if we have that shirt enlarged 1,000 times. It's using that because you're not thinking about it then, because you're just trying to convey information. There's no technique to talking loud. I've always seen people do that thing where they push your ear in like this. You ever had someone do that to you? They push in the little flap that goes over your ear hole, and they'll talk to you, and they'll go up and they won't talk loud. I don't know what kind of black magic that is, but it always works.
Really?
Every time I try to do it, people look at me like I'm crazy. So
you have to go touch their ear?
Yeah, you go and you touch their ear, and then you talk into it, and they talk at normal volume, and magically over the band, making 200 decibels of music behind me.
That's too funny. I
can hear them. I don't understand how it works, and when I try to replicate it, I fail miserably.
Who is the best screamer, in your opinion?
The best, I'd say off the top of my head, Travis Ryan would probably be.
Absolutely.
Not only just in his tone, but in his technique, his ability, his range. Getting into the more intense. I kind of put vocalists in Malt in two different buckets, where it's one, you can hear a guy and be like, okay, his technique is on point, he knows what he's doing, that's impressive, I want to listen to this with an analytical ear. The other bucket being, how is he doing that? That is so, it just sounds like it hurts. Even as a vocalist, I'm hearing him and I'm saying, how is he doing that?
I feel like Travis falls into both of those, though.
A little bit, yeah, which is what makes him so impressive. Another tone centric vocalist I've always been impressed with was Adam Warren from Oceano. Yeah, I've always found his vocals, especially live. I was talking about this on my podcast earlier today, actually recording an introduction. That my jaw was literally dropped and I didn't know it. I was watching him it was mind boggling, his control, his ability, his depth, his intensity all over, but it's all very measured. I'm trying to think of more intense centric vocalists that can just belt it. I'm dropping the ball right now, but maybe if anyone comes to mind, then a little bit I'll circle back.
Yeah, no problem. You mentioned your podcast. Let's talk a bit about that. How did that start? What inspired you?
It started just out of my love of podcasts, just being on the road and listening to Jamie Josta's podcast, and obviously your Joe Rogans, all the true crime podcasts. It goes. There's an unlimited amount of content out there. Jamie Josta's podcast, I'd say first and foremost, was my influence, because Josta talks to your Dream Theaters, your Slayers, your Lamb of Gods, where it's great to have a spotlight on not necessarily mainstream metal, But I always found there's such an audience on the mid-level touring band that is, playing Bossa Nova Ballroom. They're playing, El Corazon. They're playing places that are, 1,000 cap, 500 to 1,500 cap. They're in that meat spot, that meaty spot where they have a respectable following. They're legends in their own right. Or on the other hand, they're up-and-coming bands that are working towards that they're not willing to sacrifice their musical integrity to simply get clicks, get listens, and get bigger tours and kind of build that out. So shining a light on the hardest working bands in metal, in my opinion, I found would be, I don't have really much of a name in the scene, but I've made a few friends. And I figure if I could parlay just being able to interview them and be able to shine a light on their band, it'd be a way of giving back and a way of kind of remaining in the scene in some way that I could, again, be beneficial and be helpful and do something I enjoy, then why not? If I can't be touring, if I'm not out there all the time, I figured, I never shut up about metal. I might as well record it.
Well, what's your favorite part of the podcast, of doing a podcast?
What I found recently, because I'm slowly running out of friends that I
interview
do interviews with, is the kind of trepidation, the apprehension, the nerves I had before meeting up with someone maybe I've never met before. I did an interview with a guy named Vinny who drums in this band Raiju from the Bay Area of California. They're unsigned. They sound like Protest the Hero meets BT Bam meets Circa Survive.
That sounds cool.
Very eclectic, very interesting progressive metal that is quite honestly like nothing I've ever heard before. And their manager reached out to me wanting to get them on the podcast. I said, sure, why not? And, again, I've never met these guys. I've never talked to them. And I was kind of, but we hit it off. We had a great conversation. It was one of my favorite episodes so far. And that in itself was a really kind of eye-opening and enlightening part of it. Editing's not fun. Some days after a long day of work of staring at my computer, I don't want to stare at my computer anymore. But for the most part, when the conversation takes off, when we actually, hit on something, we strike a nerve, and the conversation opens up to something completely else, that's prescient and that's pertinent to both of us. I find that to be just so fulfilling. I love it.
The editing is a pain in the ass. It always takes a lot longer than I want it to. I'm finding a few tricks here and there. But you got to be dedicated. It's when I first started doing the podcast, I was waking up very early before my kids would wake up so that I can get some work in before I went to work.
Nice.
So
damn
commendable to you to keep it going. You got many episodes out.
Yeah, I think I'm at 28 or 29 and right back at you, man.
It's amazing.
It's not easy being on tour and doing this on tour, but it's
you got to make the time for it.
Yeah.
And I'm lucky on this tour. I'm meeting up with a bunch of people in their hometowns, and
there you go.
It's been good so far. Yeah.
Do you remind me? I know I've listened to a few episodes now. I'm a few episodes deep. You do a few remote as well, like over the phone.
No, I only do in person.
Only do in person,
because it's like two friends hanging out, drinking.
I love it. Cheers again to that. Yeah, man, for sure. Yeah, that's definitely what I'd like to do. That's definitely recommended. Preferred is what I'm trying to say. Definitely preferred. I'm finding more and more that it's becoming more, being a homebody as I am, doing more over the phone, finding ways to kind of make it. It's so much better when you can have a face-to-face conversation, though, when you can actually have something and read the other person's body language, read the conversation. Luckily, when bands come through Portland, I try to be a bastion. I try to be an oasis. Hey, I'll buy some frozen pizzas. I'll buy a case of beer. Come on over. I have a guest room, couches, all that good stuff. I want to, again, give back to the scene as much as I can. We all know how nice a hot shower and a warm bed is.
Absolutely.
On tour, especially when you're in a van.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that's always a good opportunity to I'll get to see a great show. I'll get to see some old friends, maybe make some new friends, and then have someone on in my little home, quote unquote, studio that I have. So good times.
Who is the up and coming next big metal band, in your opinion?
Oh boy. Honestly, to go back to I think Raiju really is on point. They had to turn down a couple offers for a couple labels reaching out to them just simply because they were really going. They had a couple things they wanted to do. They're very, very smart, really, really in-depth business acumen. But I think they're definitely on the rise. But the unequivocal next big thing in death metal is Vitriol from Portland, Oregon right now.
You're not the first person to have said that.
Yeah. Kyle and I go way back. their main songwriter, vocalist, and guitar player, his girlfriend, his now ex-girlfriend, unfortunately, and my fiance are really close friends. And even prior to that, I was in a band in Sacramento. I reached out to him up here in Portland looking for some, just doing some DIY gigging. We hit it off talking about metal, just kind of same philosophy on life. He lives in Seattle now, but is looking to move back. But Kyle and I are definitely very close. Them signing to Century Media.
Yeah, that's huge. That just happened, yeah.
It's huge.
Congrats to them.
100%. Yeah. He was telling me about some of the particulars on how hard they negotiated in the deal, and I'm proud of him and stoked for them for that. Kyle had a very scary health scare recently, which is why Vitriol came out with their Pain Will Define Their Death EP, and then they went kind of MIA. He almost died because of intestinal rupturing.
Really?
So he was in the hospital for that for a while. I'm only saying this with his blessing because he did say on my podcast, he did kind of full disclosure on that. He got addicted to opioids after the surgery. So he was really...
Shit's dangerous.
Dude, right? Yeah. And so he's struggling with that for a very long time. And then basically had to claw his way back up and do this. And now where they're at now, the plans that I'm unfortunately not at liberty to divulge. So I want to, obviously they're going to let that be known when it's known. But they got some big shit coming up. I've heard some pre-production stuff from the new record. Be wary. Vitriol
coming at you.
If you haven't heard them and you're listening, give them a Google.
Vitriol. What would be your ultimate horror tour story?
Horror tour story. Oh man. Horror in what capacity?
Just like a horrible day.
A horrible day.
Something that's funny now, but wasn't then.
Aren't they all? Definitely did a run of shows that was I guess it's a few days. It was 4 shows, 2 of which were in pizza parlors and 1 of which was in the sidebar of a bowling alley.
Oh my God.
Shout out to Daniel DeFonts for that one. Thanks, buddy.
You got defonced.
Haven't we all? That's a pretty bad one. Definitely drove. This is way back in the day when I was still doing local shows with my band in Sacramento. Drove all the way out to Chico, California, which is about 3-ish hours out of Sacramento. Sicker than a dog, blown voice all the way. Could barely get through the set. Almost passed out in the middle of the set. I'm kind of giving you a couple rapid fire ones here. I guess this is a good time. I wanted to talk about my Studio 7 show, as we were talking about, that apparently Studio 7 is closed now.
That's what I heard last night, because I was up in Seattle last night.
Sad.
Yeah. End of an era.
Terrible sound, but a lot of fun. Go ahead.
My first time at Studio 7 was Summer Slaughter 2008.
It's so hot.
It was so oversold that before we got on stage, the promoter got up on stage and said, please, some of you have to leave. I'll give you tickets to any free shows coming up. The shows coming up. You choose, and I'll give you free tickets. But some of you have to leave. Not the firemen are going to shut us down.
Oh my God! Did people leave?
People left, and we only got to play like 2 songs because
Jesus,
that happened. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I remember being there for the when Cannibal Corpse was headlining Summer Slaughter a couple of years back.
It was the best Summer Slaughter.
It was sick.
In my opinion. Yeah.
Quite sick, but it was hotter than hell in August, man. It was rough. It was unbearable to be in there. Like, I would only come in for parts of sets simply because I could not bear the heat. I was in short shorts and like a tank top. And
what a fucking lineup that was, though.
Oh yeah, unstoppable. But playing Studio 7 prior to that, and I love that it all culminated in Studio 7, because if you know Studio 7's green room, I'm making air quotes, is just pretty gross back there.
Yes, that shower.
Oh God, yeah, that shower was rough. My left thumb. Apparently, I was mindlessly biting my hangnail or whatever, as it were, and sweating on stage every night. It got infected, and so it started to hurt extremely bad, just pulsating pain. Where it got to the point that I couldn't. As I have my mic in my right hand, I couldn't adjust the stand with my left hand because my thumb hurt so bad.
Really?
It was just I couldn't touch it, couldn't anything. And then it started to turn green, like in the little crevice right here. America being the bastion of free healthcare that it is.
We drove to Vancouver.
Of which I had none, of course. I decided to Bear Grylls it, just take it into my own accord, and I went to a pharmacy, bought some rubbing alcohol, went and bought a a safety pin, little safety pin, borrowed someone's lighter, I bought some liquid bandage and some Band-Aids, and I cauterized the safety pin, and I sliced it open myself and did a little surgery in that lovely, super clean, pristine bathroom backstage. Squeezed out all the pus and goodies and all that fun junk that was in my thumb. Cleaned it up, bandaged it up, and played the show.
Unbelievable. That's awesome. Oh, that venue. What is your? We could continue on venues. What is a favorite venue of yours to play?
Favorite venue of mine to play, simply because of its kitsch, is St. Vitus in Brooklyn.
Oh yeah, great show there.
I love St. Vitus.
Devastation was there.
That's true.
That was a great show.
Yeah. St. Vitus is such a good time. The first time I ever played there a few years back, I have a great memory of just driving around Brooklyn. We couldn't find it. Like GPS says it's there. It's so inconspicuous.
Yeah, it is. It's like a black door.
Yeah,
if I remember correctly.
Yeah, it's not there. And then we park the van. Like, okay, let's find this place. And we wander around and we see some dude who looks like he would know where St. Vitus is. And it was something out of a movie. Like, it's right there, man. And we, knock on the door and they open it up and like Ozzy's blasting. It's ice cold in the middle of the summer outside, but ice cold AC on the inside. And it was like the promised land. I enjoy all 150 people that can cram in there. It's such a fun venue to play.
I agree. Do you have anything else you want to add? Some shout outs. Casting Metal. We talked about Casting Metal News. I didn't hit on that yet.
Yeah, castingmetalnews.com is proving to be a lot of work.
I completely agree with you. And when I saw you started doing it, I was like, ooh. You got a lot of competition, too. Which makes it...
I do. And
which makes it a tough thing to do.
It's still in its infancy. Yeah. It's still definitely getting started.
Let's just lay out what it is for people.
The idea behind it was we wanted to be just a news-centric, no bullshit, no tabloid clickbait stuff. I'm not in it to make money. I just wanted to kind of be an alternative to a lot of the
metal sucks,
the blast beat network, as it were. Yeah. Wanted to be an alternative to that. It's proven to be, partially a full-time job to kind of correlate that.
You run it all. You do all the posting.
To a degree now. I apologize. This beer is making me burpy. We started out with a couple silent partners that wanted to work with it, but as anything, and I'm not blaming anyone. There's no money from it. There's no money coming in. Yeah. The idea going forward is if I'll put in the elbow grease. I don't mind, but having those connections to those guys who are willing to work with it, I'll get first run of press releases. I'll get
that's cool.
So that was kind of the idea behind it. Is we want to do that so we can kind of have a little bit more insider networks with some other stuff. We're going to be doing some stuff with Devastation on the Nation this year. Again, we're building. We want to build some more content. YouTube channel. There's a lot of lofty goals, but being a married dude in the near future,
and that work. You got a full-time job. You got to practice with the band.
Yeah,
it takes a lot of work. Just the podcast alone is hours of work.
It's a labor of love.
Proper tagging. That's honestly, it takes me longer to write a post on Facebook and get all the tagging right than it does to sit down and have a beer with a dude.
Exactly. Yeah. It's all the bullshit behind the scenes. But as I'm sure you'll agree, it's a labor of love.
Yes.
It's a lot of fun. Yeah. It's great to do this and
connect with people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's what makes metal the best.
When I saw that you did that, I was like, oh, that's a good idea. Sponsoring Devastation.
Quote unquote.
Yeah, great.
DeFont's letting me put the name on there.
It's cool. That's a very good idea.
I'll be doing some interviews with those guys on Casting Metal. And I'll actually, funny enough, my work, I'm going to Asheville, North Carolina the same week for work that Devastation on the Nation is going to be there. So I'll get some more content and then try to get at least a handful, at least 3 or 4 interviews out of that and kind of build that out. But again, it's all for the glory of, how much we all love metal and to kind of shine a light on that. I don't know if I'm reaching any new ears who haven't heard of these kinds of bands before, but if we reach
You never
one,
know. You never know.
You never know.
Not everyone is into the black and death metal.
Exactly. And they should be.
They should be because, you'll have fun with Serpent.
Yes. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So get them a nice Modelo.
There you
They'll
go.
be happy.
There you go. Okay. Pro tip.
Or spicy sauce.
Ooh.
You bring them spicy sauce? I really like you.
I'll come loaded.
The spicier, the better. Yeah.
I appreciate it.
And thank you for coming, hanging out with me.
100%, man.
Bringing me to
Belmont Station.
Drinking a great Hazy RyePA with me. And stoked to see you.
Likewise, man. Stoked to see the set later tonight.
All the best.
It's going to be good.
Thank you.
Take care.
What's up, everybody? Thank you so much for listening right to the end. I had a good time editing this podcast. I was chuckling my way through it. We were sitting in this patio section of the back of this tap room, and it was raining, it was pouring. I wasn't sure how the audio was going to turn out, and then this group of people just come and sit right next to us and start laughing and having a crazy conversation. But I'm happy with how it turned out. It actually turned out really well. So great conversation. I love Monty. You should check out his podcast, Casting Metal. It's in the description. You should also go and get your tickets for the next Cryptopsy tour, which is coming up. It's starting next week. I'm having a great time at home. Sadly, it's so short. I love being at home with the kids, the family. But sadly, that's the life of a touring musician. You got to go back on the road sometimes close together. It's just the way it is. It all starts off May 3rd at the Netherlands Death Fest. And then on the 4th, it's at the Dreamer Fest in France. And then it continues up into Scandinavia and back down throughout the Czech Republic and Germany. This time around, we're on tour with Ingested, Insight, Night Rage, Demonical, and Glory Hole Guillotine. So get your ticket. It's on the Cryptopsy website in the tour section. Next week on the podcast, I have YouTuber Chris from J. Hoff's Films, our collaboration. He just released the video portion of this. I'm going to release the audio as a Vox&Hops episode. It was a great chat. I didn't know what to expect when I met up with him. I didn't realize how popular it was. Huge, super cool metalhead, funny dude, very humble. A great chat. I hope you enjoy it as much as I did. As always, I just want to thank all of you for listening. I really appreciate each and one of you. I feel like the podcast is growing, and I feel that it's thanks to all of you spreading the word. I can't do this without all of you. I really appreciate you, and thank you so much for listening. I hope you have a great weekend. I hope you have a great week. Hang out with your family. I will. I hope that you hang out with your friends, your loved ones, and most importantly, drink great craft beer. Cheers, Vox&Hops Heads.